Managing a design system in Figma can be tough, especially when it comes to updating your component descriptions. So whether you're trying to make your components easier to find or you just have some updates to your documentation links, these two plugins will save you a ton of time. So the first one is called Bunch Description Change. Now this is useful if you're pretty much updating everything with the same information. So if we fire it up here, you'll see we have a couple fields. We can either match the existing text that's in our components and we can replace it there, kind of like a find and replace, or you can go ahead and just fill in whatever you want to add if this is the first time you're filling it out. So one example where this is really useful is adding your documentation URL to all of the descriptions. So we can actually change this dropdown to documentation link, and then you could add in your documentation site. So you could type in something like mydocumentation.com/component/ and then you could actually select this layer name. And this is going to be a dynamic variable that will basically pull whatever the layer name is of your component, and it will add that to the URL schema. So as long as your layer names match the URL on the documentation site, you could just add in some formula like this, click change, and you'll see it added that URL to 600 components. So if we go into a description now, you can actually see that that whole URL is in there with /component/toggle button. And again, obviously your layer names need to match, but you could also play around with some of these other variables like the numbers, current value, and stuff like that. But it definitely saves a ton of time when you're trying to add the same thing to hundreds and hundreds of components. Now the second plugin is called Manage Component Descriptions, and this is pretty self-explanatory. It basically pulls in all of your components and their descriptions into one place, so you could just go down the list and update them rather than clicking in and out of all of those menus. So nothing's been added to this library, so that's why everything's blank. But we do have a couple options at the top to show the variants, and we can also enable auto select component. So maybe if the names aren't super obvious when you're clicking around, you'll see that as I start typing on some of these, it'll actually jump around the file so I have that context as I'm updating them. So definitely not as automated as it could be, but it certainly saves some time when you're trying to do this back to back and you don't want to keep clicking in and out. It can definitely speed up the process, and you can copy and paste between these a little bit more easily. Surprisingly, I haven't been able to find any AI plugins that will automate this for you. I did play around with a few, but they didn't work super well. But I do think in the future it'd be great to have some sort of ChatGPT filling in the descriptions for you, or at least adding keywords to things like icon sets so you don't have to spend tons of hours going between hundreds, if not thousands, of different components and thinking of new names to fill in so that they're more discoverable. Hopefully this was helpful. If so, be sure to like and subscribe and follow for more Figma tips.